Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for this Christmas edition episode of my random horror reviews. First of all, sorry that my setup isn't very Christmas themed or Christmas related. I thought I'd put the lights on my shelf just to spice it up a little bit, but I don't have any Christmas decorations with me at the moment. I tried a Santa's hat on that I knew I had lying around, but it was way too small, so I just thought, fuck it, they know it's the Christmas episode anyway, so who cares? This is actually my third year doing a Christmas edition episode of the series, and with today's movie, I went with a little bit of an outside the box pick, because this movie isn't really Christmas themed, it just takes place around Christmas. But today's movie is from 2019, and it is called The Lodge. I remember when this one came out, it mostly having positive feedback upon its release. But I do remember like a small crowd kind of being disappointed with this movie, probably just because their expectations were so high. From the first time seeing this movie when it came out, I really enjoyed it. Very bleak, very atmospheric. And it wasn't actually till after watching it this time for the review I actually realised it's by the directing duo who gave us Goodnight Mummy, the original version of Goodnight Mummy, which I haven't seen that movie in an extremely long time, but from what I remember, the vibes and atmosphere are very similar. But either way, we're talking about The Lodge in today's episode, so before we get into my thoughts of it, as usual, let's quickly go through the plot. So, a brother and sister are going to spend their Christmas with their dad and his new girlfriend, soon to be wife, at their family's snow lodge, cabin, whatever you want to call it. But there's tensions as their biological mum, 6 months prior, had committed suicide due to her husband moving on to this new woman, who also happened to be one of his clients. So there's tensions there already with the kids not liking her due to them thinking that she's the reason that their biological mum offed herself. But the new woman also has this history where she was the sole survivor of this cult, hence being the dad's client, as he does something along the veins of like psychological work. But anyways, something comes up not too long into their trip at this cabin where the dad has to go back home for a couple of days, leaving the kids with the new partner alone for I think it's like 3-4 days or whatever, isolated in this snowed in lodge. And as much as it's hard for the three of them to get along, some weird shit also starts to go down that starts fucking with their heads, mainly the new partner. And yeah, the story goes on from there. It's a really more of a psychological one, this one. So there's a bit more that goes into it than what I'm explaining now, but we'll deep dive into this movie as we go. So, as I said, for this year's Christmas themed episode, here I have 2019's The Lodge. So starting with the setting and atmosphere of this movie, because it is all really good. The isolated lodge surrounded by like barren plains of snow, nothing for miles. This movie feels very cold just from watching it. And I spoke in the intro about this story being very bleak. But even the use of colours in this movie, because it's all very gloomy, you have a lot of blacks, whites, and greys. That's pretty much it. Like, if this movie was in black and white, it would just look pretty much the same, honestly. There's, like, barely any colours in this movie at all. As I said, very bleak, very sort of depressing looking. And to make that go full circle, I feel like that adds to the bleak and depressing vibe of this movie, because literally and metaphorically there's like nothing bright going on in this movie at all. Speaking of which, and I guess it also adds to the atmosphere, the relationship situation going on in this movie is extremely fucked up and like really sad, because you've got these two kids, brother and sister, dealing with their mum's suicide, and they put a lot of weight on their dad, but most of the weight falls onto his new partner, being Grace. I don't think I said her name before, but her name's Grace. Which for the kids and them being the age that they are, they're like, the one of them's like maybe mid-teens, the other one's like 11 maybe. It feels reasonable for them to feel the way that they are, because in a way they're technically not wrong, because during the start of the movie, before the mum commits suicide, it's shown that she wants to work things out and get back together. It's also sort of insinuated that the relationship that the dad had with Grace was an affair, as in the mum and dad weren't split up yet, and He was sort of doing it behind their back. So it sort of justifies the anger towards the dad because he started this thing with this new woman and essentially turned on his family. But again, the kids being their age, they don't want to believe that their dad is equally the problem. So as I said, a lot of the weight falls on this new woman being Grace. But then again, from Grace's point of view, during her introduction, you kind of feel bad for her because she's trying to be nice and she's trying her best, but the kids are just not giving her anything, like completely shutting her out, cold shoulder, and you feel bad for Grace. She's also stuck because she wants to be respectful because their mum is dead, which you can kind of stem from what she did with the dad being the problem. So the dynamic and awkwardness between those three characters in particular, Grace and the two kids, it creates this insanely tense atmosphere, which again is just super strong and really adds to this film. So this movie doesn't have a very big cast at all, but everyone smashes it out of the park, and in particular the kids. That's who I want to highlight first because, as we all know, child performances, they can be very hit or miss, but both in this movie are like outstanding in my eyes, like a really fucking solid job from both child actors here. So the son Aiden is played by Jaden Martell. I think he's changed his name a few times through the early part of his career, but most people would know him as Bill from the It remake. He was also in Knives Out. He's actually been in a handful of things, and he's still young, so I'm sure he's going to be in plenty more, but he was really good in this movie. But of the two child performances, the daughter Mia, I'm blanking on the actress's name, Riley Knuff, I think that's how it's pronounced. Hopefully I'm not butchering her last name, but of the two child performances, I thought she was the better one. And her being the youngest as well, I thought she was just fucking incredible in this movie. I was so impressed, I had to go onto Letterboxd, and I wanted to check out her filmography, what else she's been in. And I was surprised that nothing really notable actually jumped out. The only thing that I had actually seen her in otherwise was the MCU movie Eternals, where she played Sprite. But she was so fucking good in this movie. Like, I can't imagine that she's not going to be cast in more things because she was like really fucking solid in this movie. Both of the child actors, as I said, did a really fucking good job. But I can't skim over the actress who plays Grace in this movie. Her name, again, I'm blanking on it, Leah McHugh. She was insanely good in this movie, and I think it's a great mix that we have here of performances because, as I said, this movie is largely just those three, and like I said, with the setting being this isolated lodge that is snowed in one location, you can imagine that it would get slow and stale, and this movie is a slow burn and does take its time, but you can really feel the runtime drag if the performances aren't strong, but the way that the dialogue and communications and everything is portrayed by these three actors, it really just keeps this movie with a running pulse, and it's like, okay, this is something I can stay locked into. And as I said, normally in a one location film you can feel it drag if the performances aren't good, but as I said, the two child actors do a great job. Leah McHugh, who plays Grace, also outstanding. Just a really overall well acted movie. So going back over something that I briefly just went over before, this movie is a slow burn, and I should put that out there because I don't want anyone to expect this movie to just fly by or constant reveals and action and, things like that. This movie does take its time. There are certain things that you'll have to just sit and linger through. Like I've been saying, this movie is pretty much one location set in this isolated lodge. Like I said, it doesn't feel as dragging because the performances are all above and beyond, and that alone is enough to keep you drawn in, or it was enough to keep me drawn in at least. And the story, like I said, you've got this relationship dynamic and tension, like I mentioned earlier, which is really strong and again keeps you engaged and locked in. But the story and mystery itself is also really interesting because, the kids have cautions with Grace and, her history in this cult. The questions come up that keep you engaged. Can we trust Grace as a character? Is she truly over her traumatic past? Are the kids willing to sit peacefully with her over these couple of days while Dad's gone? And then, like I said, when shit starts taking turns and some questionably wild shit starts going down at this cabin. Again, the questions come up of what's truly going on, and it starts playing with your mind, all these psychological things going on. And as I said, it's again really good with the story to keep you engaged like that. Now, I will say, without getting into spoilers, of course, because I don't like spoiling shit in my reviews, there are twists and reveals towards the end of this movie which really stick out to me. Not because they're insanely out of left field or crazy, but again, because the reveals and twists in this movie are so fucking bleak. And the repercussions of these reveals and twists, and the effects that they end up playing onto our characters towards the end of this movie are even more bleak. And if you've seen my reviews before and, you know, some of the movies that stick out to me, I'm kind of a sick fuck, and I do like movies that do have bleak endings and depressing endings. I know a lot of people sort of shy away from them and they go, oh, I hated that movie because of the depressing ending. Sometimes that's all I fucking need, just that real gut punch, and this movie has it, because the ending, as I said, with the twist and reveal and how it snowballs onto the characters and how this movie finishes off, it really is quite effective, and those are the things that I probably remember most from this movie, along with the performances and atmosphere. So I'm going to pretty much leave it here for this review. This is a movie I've always enjoyed coming back to revisit over the years. Like I said, I feel like most people did enjoy this one when it came out, but I also feel like it was quickly forgotten about and kind of moved on from. It might get a little resurgence of attention again soon, because the directors have a new horror movie coming out this year maybe, or maybe next year, I can't remember. I think it's called The Devil's Bathwater. I hope I'm right, because that sounds weird coming from my mouth. I think it's called The Devil's Bathwater, but I guess before I get to my score as well, and this being a Christmas edition episode of my random horror reviews, how does this movie fit the holiday? Like I said in my introduction, it doesn't overly really fit the holiday. It just takes place around Christmas. It has, you know, some decorations, mentions of presents and whatever, but really that's about it. I mean, for my Christmas edition episodes that I've done in the past, I've done a lot of out-of-the-box picks. Like, I remember I did The Conjuring 2, and I think a lot of people forgot that that movie also takes place around Christmas, but moving on from that, I mean, the snow and cold atmosphere might do something for you if you're used to a white Christmas, but because I'm Australian, it's always hot around Christmas time, because our Christmas is in summer, and I fucking love a good hot Christmas. Obviously, I don't know any better, because I haven't experienced a white Christmas, but I love just the fucking summertime around Christmas. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's an Aussie thing, but really engaging story, great cast giving great performances, atmospheric, immersive setting. As I said, just watching this movie, it feels very cold, and all that benefits on top of it being a slow burn and one location film, which is just really cool. So for The Lodge from 2019, I am going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. If you've seen The Lodge before, let me know your thoughts on it. And I guess before I close off this video, again, happy holidays everybody. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate something else, I'm just trying to say the right things here so I don't get cancelled. But happy holidays. Hope everyone's staying safe, has a good December, and a good transition into 2025. I'm pretty sure my next video will be next year. I don't know what I'm got lined up. I guess I know I always have a big January, which I plan on continuing, so stay tuned in for early 2025 and my January lineup. But thank you for joining me for this review, guys. Again, happy holidays, and I'll see you again soon. Peace.